Will Beastman make it a 6th streak? Will we see another surprise winner? Or will Zandvoort give us another unexpected result that nobody can see coming? I don't know, but we're about to find out. It's lights out and away we go. And Beastman, now in the 2022 remaster, is actually getting a pretty good gap on the field. Although they do run it a little wide, so I'm not entirely sure how well that's gonna benefit their championship battle. Rodu is actually going in the 2016 car, which is only the 2nd time we've seen someone run it. Hopefully someone's going to get the meme car to higher heights than they had beforehand. But the main thing to note is that Beastman is once again at the front of the field using a new quirky car. We've already got a couple of slips at the hellish corner that is that area of Zandvoort. Remember, Zandvoort is the only map that is not in the active, like, race rotation, specifically because of how hard it is. We're recording. Yeah, yes, we're recording. We're recording. I might, like, make somewhat of a check to see if I'm, like, to see if my microphone's working. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do that right now. You guys can still look at the race while that's happening. So far, there's actually a pretty big bundle in that part of the track. There's already a spin as Benjamin, who actually had a pretty good time beforehand, makes a bit of an issue and goes very close to the wall. It's a little bit unfortunate considering the early pace he had, but there's still plenty of time to try and catch up in the rest of the race. Hold on, I forgot to turn on the weather. Boom. Okay, okay, there we go. Heya has actually found his way into the lead because I think Beastman might have made a blunder. No, he didn't. Heya's just that fast. And for anyone who doesn't know yet, Heya is actually running as the reserve driver for HBSK. And even better than that, because he's picked the 2003 car, if Heya ends up winning that was pretty wide, wasn't it? But either way, if Heya ends up winning this, then he is going to score absurd points for someone who's currently tied with Beastman. So this is quite the championship battle that's going underway here. And actually, wait, no. Heya's the reserve driver for JZ. Speed for Rages is the driver for HDSK. Never mind. Heya's the driver for JZ. So yeah, if JZ gets a good result with the reserve driver of Heya, then he is going to get quite a big gap considering that his lead was already somewhat under pressure, and it's going to be another race where JZ scored the most points. But look at this. Look at all of the variety cars in the front. This right here is what you call an interesting setup. Because there's a 2003 car, a 2007 car, a 2022 remaster, and another 2007 car, all up in the battle to try and potentially get a race win. But who's going to be the one to make a major blunder first? All right, now I can finally check. Is the microphone actually working? Come on, please tell me this is outputting here because I don't want to like.
Holy shit!
Okay, it's working. We're good. So yeah, Heya is still keeping on very good form and is actually starting to break away from the rest of the field. This right here is a dream start for JZ's reserve driver as they're starting to make a major gap on the field. Beastman, of course, is currently on a 5-race win streak, and he does not want to have that faltered by someone else who's being a reserve driver to his closest rival right now. Well, not exactly his closest, but his most ambitious rival that he's trying to overtake. Especially considering that the bonus points for the 2022 car and the 2022 remaster actually ended up getting nerfed pretty severely, as it went from 5 points to 2 points. That was mainly because of the really high top speed that they could reach. Some people were doing some pretty crazy things with those, and we actually, like, voted on lowering the points for that. But yeah, looking for the rest of the field, we already have a couple of retirements. How do you even mangle a car that badly, Ethan? My god! But yeah, flicking through the rest of the field, we also have Soviet in it, who's just sort of there. Spider-Zap, who's taken a very bold decision and has gone with the 1992 car, very much relying on people making multiple crashes. Real Immortals crashed, I'm not quite sure where that happened. Crumpin is going with the 2003 car, and there's actually another big battle happening here between Benjamin and his other Renault compatriot, Arceus, no, that's Arto. Arto's actually having a pretty good battle between the cool Alpine and the based Alpine, so, yeah. I'm very interested to see how that goes, especially considering that 5th place is potentially up for grabs, but unfortunately I can't paint that big of a spotlight on it considering how close the front runners are. Look at how short the gaps are between the front 4. All it'll take is one major mistake from any of them to give up the lead to another one. And look at this. First place for a Benetton, second place for a Renault, third place for a Renault. It's a full Renault podium. What are the odds of that happening? But wait, no, hold on. Is that Spinola? Since when did Spinola get into this race? Hold on. Spinola hasn't showed up for any of the races beforehand, but he was the ARO3 champion after having a really good early start, after he couldn't get he couldn't be caught up to by everyone else in the league, sort of by the halfway mark. But he still ended up securing McLaren the Constructors' Championship with a beautiful drive in the final race. So, yeah, Spinola is a very, very formidable opponent, and seeing him here, front-running in the top 3 on his debut, that is a very special sight. But yeah, considering that Hayar is in a far weaker machine compared to Speed for Ages and Spinola, I have a feeling that Hayar is going to have quite the big uphill battle to try and do if he wants to win. Because remember, even though Speed for Ages is close, they still have to deal with Beastama, the guy who's won 5 races in a row, despite the fact that he's not exactly showing the most pace right now. But yeah, now they go to the funny spinny corner, nobody makes a spin, and they keep themselves relatively in control. And Beastama is actually starting to fall relatively far back. That's a bit of a surprise considering... Oh, and Beastama takes it really wide! He nearly tapped the wall! If that ended up happening, that would have been disastrous for him, considering the championship battle he's in right now. Especially considering that his rival, who's scoring points for basically his main championship challenger, HVSK, who is Speed for Ages, is currently in second, and I think he's about to snatch the lead from Hayar. Yes, he's got more speed on the straight, and Speed for Ages takes the lead of the race. This reserve driver has been absolutely everywhere, and Hayar is also a reserve driver for Jay-Z. So these two, despite being very new to this field, are both battling to make their reserve driver stand on top, or rather, their main driver. They're the reserve drivers here. But yeah, here comes the spinny corner of doom. Is anyone gonna spin out here? Speed for Ages nails it. Hayar nails it a little bit better, and so gets a little bit of speed from that. And Spinola is actually doing an incredible job catching up to them. They are pulling away from Beastama as well. I'm actually not sure how much of this is coming down to car choice. I'm really befuddled with this. And in the middle of all of the chaos, Spa Idazep has made it to 9th place, so that's going to be a pretty sweet batch of 4 points if he can make it to the end. Ooh, Speed for Ages takes it really wide, but he doesn't tap a wall. Hayar is still keeping it relatively steady, and Spinola is still very much in the hunt as well. And like I said, it could all shift depending on if any of them make a mistake, or of course, if there's a major change to the weather that's coming up. Because, like we forecast before, there is going to be some light drizzles throughout this race, and that may make it a little bit tricky for some of the other cars that aren't adapted to this. But here's the great thing about these three leading with these cars. The 2003 car and the 2007 car are the best cars to use in the wet weather. That is just a cold, hard fact. They control really nicely, they still maintain their pretty good speed, and it's near impossible to spin them out. I speak about spinning and someone's spun out! I think that's Speed for Ages! Yes! Speed for Ages makes a major blunder at the spinny corner of doom, and now he has to climb all the way back up as Hayar takes back the lead once again. But of course, Speed for Ages already proved that he has the skills to try and bring himself back up, so that's not exactly a coffin nail, and more so a bonk on the head with a wooden bat. Believe me, I've seen Speed for Ages come back from a lot of things, and this is hardly going to be a setback for him. You know, unless he makes another blunder. But yeah, Hayar in the 2003 car has taken back the lead. Let me check who's got the fastest lap. It's Speed for Ages. Speed for Ages is currently in 3rd, with the 2007 car has the fastest lap. If he can hold on to that, then that is going to give him 3 bonus points. And oh my god, look at how little the margin was between him and Hayar. Holy shit, Speed for Ages. This is building up to be an absolute classic right now. I did not expect these cars to be the front runners, but really, when you're racing in the Apex King of Kings, you have to expect the unexpected. I mean, in what other league do you see 3 different Renaults of 3 different kinds in 3 different eras all battling at the front while the remastered version of the 2022 Alfa Romeo is trying to crawl his way back up? What, was this race possessed by the spirit of Alonso? I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking I might have to put my Alpine shirt on for this because... Ooh, very nice recovery for Speed for Ages. He's got some really good pace on this track, but the issue is that he's just a little bit too unstable, and that may end up hurting him in the more aggressive sectors for the track. Of course, like we said earlier, there is still some rain forecast, and we don't know when that's going to come in, but when it does, these 3 cars are only going to have more of an advantage than they did beforehand, but it's going to be Heya who's going to be struggling a little bit more, considering... Hold on, did Heya make a mistake? I think he may have cut too many track limits. No, he didn't. He just made a genuine blunder, and now it's Spinala, the champion of this era of cars, and the one who's known for going fast in them, who's leading the pack. And it's less than a... Oh, and it's a major blunder! It was Heya! Heya took it really, really, really wide and now has a huge margin to try and come back from. I think that might be the rain or the tyre wear. I'm not sure. No, wait, yeah, this is the tyre wear because he's using the 2003 car, and the tyre wear for the 2003 car is absurd. Look at how much he's having to nurse the car just to try and keep it steady. And now it's a battle between Spinala and Speed for Ages. Both of them well, Spinala's not a reserve driver. He's just here for shits and giggles. But Speed for Ages has a goal. He needs to come first to try and secure HVSK as many points as possible. And he's got the fastest lap right now. So he has a chance to score a total of 33 points if he could win the race here. But of course, he still has to get past Spinala. They're neck and neck. I feel like Speed for Ages got a much better line as now he takes the lead of the race. The lead is shifting so much throughout this race that it's so difficult to tell who's the dominant driver. Heya is still having to nurse the car. They're probably going to box very soon, and they take that really wide, nearly annihilate themselves over that elongated sausage curve over there. And they're drifting the car over and over and over. They have to be thinking about boxing soon, because there is no way they can sustain that kind of wear. And as you saw there from the tyre smoke, it's starting to get to Spinala a little bit as well. Both Spinala and Speed for Ages both feeling the impacts of that more aggressive wear. Do any of them decide to opt for a new compound? No, they don't. Speed for Ages and Spinala stay out. But does Heya come in? Yeah, Heya figures that they've had enough and decides to box for a new set of the dry compound tyre. The weather that was forecasted to show up beforehand hasn't quite reared its ugly head. I'm pretty sure we may have even potentially gotten the forecast entirely wrong. But yeah, with that box, Beastava is handed 3rd place temporarily and may hold on to it if he doesn't decide to box at all. Speed for Ages has been a reserve driver ever since the beginning, and now I'm starting to question, if a reserve driver wins, does that count as a win for the reserve driver, or a win for the driver that they're racing for? Or maybe it's both. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, Spinala still very much in the hunt. These drivers are glued to each other. Speed for Ages has the better pace, but Spinala is more consistent. Whenever Speed for Ages makes a mistake, he falls harder. Remember, twice the pride, double the fall. Ooh, both of them had a little bit of a slip there. Are any of them deciding to box for a new compound? Yes, they are! Speed for Ages goes in and hands the lead to Spinala. Whether Spinala will be able to hold onto that pace for just long enough to make that bar ox poorly tied for Speed for Ages, we'll just have to wait and see. Ooh, Spinala has a little bit of a slip there. I think Speed for Ages was definitely a lot better on when to box. They tapped the wall as well. Spinala is bleeding time when they need to try and make it up. They could push as much as they want on this compound, considering they're not going to be using for that long. But how far can they go before the compound annihilates itself? So yeah, Beastava's been granted 2nd place, but his tyres are going to start wearing as well. You can see it there. He enters a slide before he even gets to the most complicated corner of the track. That right there is pure proof, like just flat out explicit proof as to how shaky this track is when it comes to, well, how unstable it is and how slippery the compounds are, as Beastifer now slips back to 4th place, as Hayar has come back after those couple blunders he's made, and he's starting to make a charge for speed for ages. Does Spinala decide to box? No, he doesn't! Spinala is still staying out on those more worn tires. He needs a good strategy for this if he wants to come back. Hayar is only a little bit behind Speed for Ages, and the real question is if Speed for Ages can hold off Hayar despite them having more worn tires than Speed. Because Hayar has proven himself to be probably the strongest driver out of these, but only when the tires are just right for the 2003 car, which is really starting to feel the impact of the pure pain that comes from driving the 2003 cars with the higher tire wear. Of course, that's why he boxed a little bit earlier, but he's gonna have to nurse it if he's trying to catch up to Speed for Ages. Oh, Spinala has been making many mistakes on that lap. Just look at how slow that lap time is. An 18 in the first sector and a 29 for the second, compared to a 17 for Hayar and a 28 for Speed for Ages. But now Hayar actually has a chance to go for an overtake on Spinala. Do they take the line more aggressive? Yes, they do. Is Spinala boxing? No, they're not. Spinala is still staying out on this one compound. Hayar and Speed for Ages are now in a star-locked, intertwined battle to try and fight for their first win, and for the first driver win that hasn't come from a Brit in the past 5 races. Hayar has a little bit of a slip, but they control it beautifully. Look at how nice the control they got on that was. That was pristine. Could have cleared my throat for a second. But yeah, Speed for Ages still has the lead. Oh, and Hayar takes it really wide. Is that going to be a track limit? No, it's not. Hayar still keeps some speed, but he had to compromise his line in that corner just to compensate for a bit of a quirk with the car. And now Spinala is falling further and further back with that extra worn compound. So surely he's got to think about boxing soon. He's done about 3 laps now on a compound that's slowly been getting worse, and everyone else is 4 seconds closer to him. No, he's still staying out. What is going on in Spinala's head? That's practically handing at that point, that's pretty much handing a podium to Arto if they can keep themselves relatively steady. Beaster is starting to fall back quite a bit as well. This is the last thing he needed in such an important battle for the championship, as it's looking like his closest rival, Speed for Ages, could potentially get the maximum points in this race right here. And right when Beaster thought he'd caught up to everyone. Seriously, why is Zandvoort cooking such an incredible battle? Ooh, Spinala takes it really wide there, and his lap times are still bleeding more and more. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to keep this up for the rest of the race, but if Spinala is somehow able to win by not stopping at all, I will be very impressed. Of course, I'm not saying that he is gonna, but there's a chance that he might. Okay, Hayar actually gets a really nice line into there and has some really good speed he's holding on to. It's kind of a shame we can't see the actual speedometers from the other drivers from here, because that would be really nice for dictating how quick they're going. Hayar takes another pretty nice line over here as Speed for Ages is still in second place and is still charging as much as he can for Spinala. And Spinala does a Spinala! That hands the lead to Speed for Ages once again, as now it's a battle for the lead between Speed for Ages and Hayar, the 2 reserve drivers for 3 of the highest scoring drivers in this league. This is going to be absolutely paradigm shifting depending on who wins here. If Hayar wins, that means Jay-Z is going to pull even further away. Oh, but Jay-Z makes a major blunder, and I think that may have been a track limit too. Speed for Ages pulls away after doing such a masterful drive. But of course, he still has to hold on for the remainder of this race. Part of me thinks that, like, Spinala could have probably had a chance if he'd boxed at the same time as everyone else, but no. He decided to not box at all, and that didn't work, and that just didn't work out for him. Oh, and on another note, there's still no rain showing up. I think our forecasts might have been completely screwed over. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but for anyone who changed their car choice because of the fact that I said there would have been a little bit of rain, sorry. Oh, and Hayar isn't exactly able to recover that one as he buries it into the wall and hands second place back to Spinala. But of course, Spinala still has the really worn compound, and Arto is actually catching up piece by piece by piece, and so is Beastaver. I wonder if they boxed yet. I'm not sure. So yes, Spinala, without boxing at all, is still battling for second place. Hayar takes it super duper wide, has another bit of a slight drift, and now this is where the one compounds for the 2003 car are really going to start crippling them. And Speed for Rages is still in as comfortable of a lead as ever, after perfectly executing his tire strategy and keeping himself perfectly stable. We haven't seen a unique race winner in absolutely ages. And Speed for Rages is seeming to be on course to break Beastaver's unbroken streak 6 races in. Wow. It's kind of difficult to formulate unique words when you're still seeing something so absurd. But yeah, Spinala and Hayar are now right next to each other. Hayar makes more of a... Is that a crash? Hayar crashes out! Oh my god, that is true disaster for Jay-Z! Going from potentially winning the entire race to giving HVSK the ticket to jump him in the standings all over again! Oh my god! It's pure disaster for Jay-Z and pure elation for HVSK. And now Otto has been gifted the ticket to bring himself onto the podium. But the real question now is if he can hold off the raging bull of Beastaver, who's been slipping away more and more as the race has been going, but now he is in a star-crossed battle to at least try and get a podium from what's been a disaster of a race from him. But he still has to go through Otto. It's seeming like he's got the overtake, but there's still 5 laps to potentially make a mistake. I'm not sure who's gonna be the one to make a blunder here, but it's seeming like Speed for Rage and Spinala's positions are relatively locked in. Okay, Arceus's Ditto takes a much nicer line than Beastaver and briefly takes away the lead from them, but Beastaver is an absolute fighter. He isn't going to go down just from one bad line. Oh, and it's a spin out from Otto! Otto crashes into the wall once again. It's not a fatal one, but it's essentially handed Beastaver a spot onto the podium. It's not been Beastaver's best race, but he has made one hell of a recovery drive. Don't count him out of the championship just yet. Just because HVSK's reserve driver has gotten one hell of a result, that doesn't necessarily mean that Beastaver's efforts have been in vain. But yeah, holy shit, the paradigms have shifted so much just from those couple moments right there. Ibrandan's just sort of been vibing, and after all of the retirements, I was thinking that like the guy who was using the 1992 car could make absolute bank from everyone else's bonus points, but he didn't make it either. That's very much a shame. You can stay there if you want. Hold on. Wow, I didn't expect there to be such an absurd battle for the win here today. Some people were doing such an incredible job, and some first-timers were even making an incredible showcase for their skill. And just as another note, this is actually Speed for Rage's final appearance as a reserve driver, as he's used his 3 charges to help HVSK, and he's done so with pure prestige. Granted, it wasn't the most comfortable first 2 races, but this absolute blowout of a final race is definitely gonna make it worth it for HVSK, who hasn't been able to show up for over a month, but his standard has truly lit the world on fire. But yeah, Spinala, who still hasn't pit, they still have to nurse the car home with Beastaver charging up to them, but Beastaver's made a couple more mistakes. I'm not sure where that may have been from. Wait, no, he hit too many track limits, and now Arto is catching up to Beastiver again. I don't think Arto has enough time to catch up to them before the race ends. But we'll just have to wait and see. Could we get a triple red up? I am going to shut up now. Like, I say, can we get a triple Renault podium? And then Arto immediately spins out. But of course, they are still fighting, hoping and praying that Beastiver makes a major blunder. But of course, Arto's on the more worn tires and the more unstable car. So really, it comes down to who has a better sense of car control. Seriously, this race has been utterly absurd, and I've loved every minute second of it. And all of this because everyone decided to shift to cars that gave a lot of bonus points. Like, wow. Wow! But yeah, Beastiver has a 30-second gap, 7 seconds ahead of Arto, and now it entirely comes down to who is going to get to the end without making a blunder. I'm actually starting to think that there's not going to be any rain at all. I mean, there was rain forecast, but it's just not showing up. So, what's going on there? But yeah, all eyes are on Beastiver right now to see if he can bring it home without making a major blunder. Because if he can do it, his win streak may have ended, but his podium streak will still rage on. And of course he's... Oh! It's another major spin from Beastiver, but he recovers it! Not perfectly, but soundly. If Beastiver still continues making those mistakes, it'll give a door to Arto, but at least he didn't completely annihilate the car. That's the main takeaway to get from this. That was almost another spin from Beastiver, but he controlled it really nicely. And you can really see right now that the car is virtually fighting him, trying to spin out at every possible occasion. But Beastiver's still holding himself together quite nicely, and there's a 5-second gap between him and Arto. Beastiver's one blunder away from giving Arto the chance to jump in for a podium. But again, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Amazing recovery from Beastiver over there. I feel like Arto isn't even really focusing on the pace and is just focusing on keeping it steady in case Beastiver makes another blunder. So, yeah, I still can't believe what I'm seeing, considering how much of a shakeup this is to pretty much everything we've all known. Is this what everyone felt like during the 2024 Brazilian Grand Prix? I mean, yeah, because I was there, and I felt very much the same. But yeah, Beastiver, at the same spot he slipped before, he slips again, but he controls it very nicely and doesn't actually crash into the wall. Very well done from Beastiver there. If he keeps doing that, then he's surely going to still remain holding onto his podium. But of course, it's not going to be easy. He takes it a little bit wide there. Arto takes it way wider. I think they may have had to compromise their line a little. Beastiver slips it in a little bit there, but he still has relatively good control. Hold on! He's getting really close to Spinala! Could Beastiver claw his way to P2 in the dying breaths of the match? I'm not entirely sure, but we're on the final lap, and Spinala is one mistake away from handing it to Beastiver. I have genuinely no clue what's going to happen here, considering how unstable of a track this is. But while this battle's going on, there is someone I want to acknowledge, and that's the person who's leading the race at this very moment. Speed for Ages has been a reserve driver for HESK, and he's on his final available race, and he hasn't had the best of luck. In his first race, he had a major blunder that brought him near the back. In the second race, it was very much the same story. But here, he's controlled himself beautifully. He's picked a car that's going to give him a lot of bonus points. And he's secured the fastest lap in his final race. He breaks Beastiver's streak as Speed for Ages, scoring points for HVSK, wins the Dutch Grand Prix. Beastiver... Wait, did Beastiver get the overtake on Spinala? Well, not yet. There's still about a 3-second gap there, but Spinala, on his first race, who only showed up for shits and giggles, goes across the line, or is rather on his way to secure second place. What an incredible result from someone who just showed up for a laugh. And finally, Beastiver, despite going experimental and not getting the points he wanted, still manages to secure a podium after Arto's incredible attempts and denies the triple Renault podium. Holy shit! What did I just witness? So, I'll see you next week, I guess.